So first of all, I'd like to just thank CIS Bankers for inviting me to be part of this today. Or in Ukrainian, I've learnt that the word to say is "Дякую." It's okay. My name is Rachel Waits. I'm the Director of Recruitment and Admissions at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. I'm based on our London campus, so it's just a short flight from here. And what I'm going to talk to you about today, I'm going to keep it quick, is the role that I think business schools can and should play in management development. And hopefully it will pick up on some of the themes that we've talked about in the last couple of hours, looking at some of the bad behavior of bankers, the fact that people need to feel that they have purpose, and that really you should, or you can reward people with knowledge and development and recognition and not just with money. So let's get started. Just a quick word about Chicago Booth for those of you who haven't heard of us. We're the second oldest business school in the US. We were founded in 1890, which is really old by American standards, by John D. Rockefeller, who was a famous investor. And he said that University of Chicago was the best investment that he ever made, which is a pretty big statement. We're famous for a couple of things. First of all, our Nobel Prizes. We have 84 Nobel Prizes associated with the university, which is 10% of all Nobel Prizes ever awarded. So we're very proud of that. We're also famous for some of our firsts. We were the first ever executive MBA program ever awarded was at Chicago Booth. The first PhD in business. The first woman to graduate with an MBA came from University of Chicago as well. So we've had a really long history in teaching executives. We also were the first business school to open 3 permanent campuses on 3 continents. So we have our beautiful campus in Chicago. We have a very nice campus in London, where I'm based, in the city. And we also have a campus in Singapore. So we have 3 campuses. Okay, so just to take a quick macro look at the situation with management education with this cheerful picture. As we've already talked about, there are, with uncertainty in the global markets, economic pressure, there's really been an accelerated pace of change with companies. And companies have had to really think about how they organize their managers and their employees. They're trying to move people out of functional silos and flatten hierarchies. And it's just so that people can think quicker and act smarter. The downside of that is employees these days are often put in sink or swim situations where immediate performance is not just possible, it's expected. So it's kind of a kill or be killed environment out there. And so, to succeed in this type of environment, we think that companies need managers who are smart, savvy, and insightful. And what do I mean by that? So smart is that they have a lot of knowledge and that they know how to use it. Savvy is that they know what they want to achieve and they know how to do it. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, that they're insightful, that they learn and grow from experience, and that they make better informed choices and know how to do things better the next time around. So we think that these attributes are key for achieving high and consistent levels of performance. And we think business schools can achieve this level of performance by taking on board some of these attributes. But attributes don't really mean anything when it comes to high performance. Obviously, performance is measured on actions. It was Professor Harry Davis and Robin Hogarth at Chicago Booth who developed this a few years ago. And the diagram here provides a representation of 3 of the important elements of performance as far as we're concerned. So up there in the top left, conceptual knowledge, is the part acquired through formal instruction and learning. And this is traditionally where business schools have played a big part. So it covers concepts such as finance, economics, statistics, marketing, all the things that you have to know, the theory. And, taught in a way that kind of encourages logical, reasonable thinking. In the top right-hand corner, you have Oh, sorry, well, going back, so the value of conceptual knowledge, linking back to the slide before, is that a thorough grounding in the theory is the hallmark of a good business school education. That's how you get to be smart, like I said in the previous slide. Up there in the top right, domain knowledge is something that we've talked a lot about today and yesterday. So that's really what you learn on the job. So this is knowledge you have about customers, about processes, about your work environment, about your marketplace and your business. And that's not something you can learn at business school. So we're not saying that this is something you'll get from business school. This is something that you come to business school with. I think what business schools can do, obviously, is help you learn new techniques and ways for improving your domain knowledge, but this is not something we teach. And then, so that's how you become savvy. So I said smart and I said savvy. So this is savvy up there in the top right, domain knowledge. And then finally, what does that mean? You have to translate this conceptual and domain knowledge into action. And to do that, you need action skills. So a bit like we talked about again previously, it's being able to persuade people to get on board with your ideas, being able to motivate people, communicate those things into action, basically. And so action skills are really hard to learn, and it's really difficult to teach that. You can try and learn how to motivate people on the job. You can try and learn how to do that at business school. But ultimately, what we think is really important for action is insights. And when we talk about insight, people obviously confuse that sometimes with intuition, and it can mean intuition as well. But we think that people are not born with intuition. What insight really is the ability to be able to reflect on what you've done and make small changes in your behavior and do better next time. So some of the things we feel that insight means at Chicago Booth is the ability to collect your experiences in a critical way, to write them down, to develop a collection of experiences and seek feedback from others in an active and disciplined way. To not just be happy with with the first answer, but to try and challenge your own beliefs by looking for disconfirming evidence. And one person who did this really well, for example, is Charles Darwin, Origin of the Species. So he had a theory, and then he spent, the next 8 years trying to address the arguments against his theory. So it's really spending time looking for other answers. It's also understanding that what intuition really is gathering data and extracting value from that data so that you can make the right choices. Also being able to recognize the value of multiple viewpoints and seeking opinions and ideas from people outside your own sphere. Being able to experiment as well, take risks, do something completely different, make changes to your actions. And then something else that's important is that if you don't write it down, it doesn't exist. And that's something that we tell our students all the time. So really just developing a collection of ideas and experiences. And then the final one, which kind of sums up all of this, is question everything. So being able to, again, not settle for the first answer, not just hear what you want to hear, but push yourself out of your comfort zone and find or look for other answers as well. I think I had a drink in a bar last night with the CEO of an insurance company who attended yesterday, and he said to me, this sounds great, but I've done all this myself because I ran my own business for 2 years, and it failed. And people used to tear my ideas to shreds, and I really went through the mill like those 2 years of setting up my own business. And that's great, but most people in this room will never have that experience. So I think what business schools can do is act as a laboratory, we think, where you can really spend time on this. So it's not just about learning the fundamentals and finance and statistics and marketing. It's about giving yourself space to practice these insight skills. And also have people from with different points of view to yours kind of tearing you to shreds, if you like, so you can build yourself back up again. Just like the guy in the bar said last night, I think that business schools give you the space to try these types of things out. So going back to the diagram, we feel that down here, where your action skills, the decisions you make, your actions, they obviously translate to outcomes in the workplace. But how can you continuously improve is through feedback. And that feedback needs to be active and disciplined. So that could be feedback from your work colleagues, like Dennis said earlier, but it can also be feedback that you go through yourself. You know, this is a lifelong exercise where you learn from experience and you get better at doing things. So I just want to show you briefly how we do this, or at least where we think we can help as well. So I talked a bit on the diagram about conceptual knowledge, and whose responsibility is that, or where do you get conceptual knowledge? And that's at business school or at university. So who's responsible for that? That would be professors or teachers. How do you go about getting this conceptual knowledge? Through study and through reading and through gaining new knowledge that way. The domain knowledge part of the diagram, where you get that is, or whose responsibility that is the company. That's ongoing training at work. That's getting to know what you're doing and your business and your marketplace. Action skills, when I talked about motivating others, leading teams, making decisions, whose responsibility is that? In this example, we say students because obviously, or it could be you as individuals as well. And that's ongoing practice. You get better at doing these types of things. And then the important part, again, is this insight skills that really feeds into action and how you go about doing, how you put together your actions, really. So insight skills, again, that's ongoing practice and continuous feedback. How we do this at Chicago is something that we're kind of famous for, if you like, is what we call the Chicago approach. So the emphasis at Chicago is obviously on conceptual knowledge. It's about providing our students with a really good grounding in the theory, in the fundamentals. We concentrate on fundamentals, not formulas. We concentrate on fundamentals and not fads. So if you come to Chicago booth, you won't necessarily find a course in e-commerce or mobile apps or something like that. We really focus on the theory and really the fundamental building blocks of business at booth. That's really accompanied by a focus on debate, on pushing back, on not settling for the first idea, for the first answer, and trying to find the best solutions for any problem, really. And our faculty really ask students to question their own beliefs, compete with others, collaborate when they need to. It's Dennis used the word meritocracy. We think it's a meritocracy of ideas, where people are really challenging everything, questioning everything, pushing back on the faculty, and the faculty expect the same of each other as well. Down here at the bottom, it's kind of a slogan that we have at Booth, and I'll show you a video in a minute about what that means, but we teach people how to think and not what to think. What to think means, obviously, that there's a set way of doing things. What we try and do is combine the conceptual knowledge with the insight and action skills so that you can take what you learn at Booth and apply it to any situation in any country, in any industry for the rest of your life. We do this through our faculty, who really are some of the best in the world. I talked to you a bit about our Nobel Prize winners. There's a couple up here that you might have heard of, especially if you work in finance. Milton Friedman, Myron Scholes, Gary Becker, who coined the phrase human capital. We also have people who, not just academics, but who work as consultants, who are real-world practitioners as well. So people like Raghuram Rajan, who's the Chief Economic Advisor to the Prime Minister of India, Austin Goolsbee, who's the former Chief Economic Advisor to Barack Obama, and Richard Thaler, who's a behavioural economist who works with David Cameron in the UK. You know, I guess every business school can put lists of famous names, and what does that really mean? But I think one thing is that the people who teach at Chicago Booth teach there because of this Chicago approach and because of this environment where you're continuously pushed and you're asked to improve and come up with a bigger and better solution to everything. The faculty themselves are given feedback by the students every week as well. So it's not just one-way traffic, it's a constant feedback circle. I'm going to just show you a quick video where you'll see what this really means in action and in practice. So it's just a few words from some of our students and some of our faculty.
This program very gracefully takes you out of your comfort level, and it has a phenomenal result.
The reason I chose to come to Chicago Booth was very clear. The business fundamentals that they teach you are second to none. Corporate finance, macroeconomics, statistics, taught by some of the best faculty in the world.
We teach those disciplines at a deeper level than what you see lots of other places, and then we believe the key to the discipline-based approach is that when one approaches business problems, one actually uses the frameworks from those disciplines in order to inform decision-making.
You're really encouraged to think of all different angles of a problem. And so if you think of only one angle, you'll be encouraged to think of, well, what else?
If you don't develop the soft infrastructure of the institutions through government or other agencies, how can you prevent that type of corruption?
It is because you care deeply about the individual you're challenging, and you want to make their ideas better. So this culture of where we challenge each other, we see as the bedrock of building a strong community.
There's no way you'll meet that 95% capacity in 3 years.
Yeah.
300 works, 600 works, 600 works.
You look at the results, and if they don't work, you retest those assumptions and go through the process all over again.
There is not the booth view of something. There is the booth way of thinking, which can lead to many views on any particular topic.
Once those concepts are within you, you apply them to make sense of the messy world that we are encountered every day.
And this kind of preparation you get in Chicago Booth. You feel that you're prepared, you're tough, you're strong, you think at least 10 steps ahead of anyone else out there, and you feel confident in yourself.
So I hope what that video showed you is just kind of our approach to learning. And I think where business schools come in is, as I say, they act as laboratories, time away from work, where you can practice risky behavior, you can try out new ways of acting, you can get feedback from multiple sources, and this isn't something you can necessarily do on the job. And we talked a bit about how you incentivize or you retain top talent. And I know that Killian mentioned that there was bankers in this region felt that knowledge was something they were lacking. And I think it's perhaps where business schools come in is that in partnership with companies, this is where we fill the gap in these insight skills, where you can see that people are allowed to reflect on behavior and make changes, and also in knowledge as well. So if you permit me to just tell you a bit more about what we have in London. Before I go on, it's easy again for me to stand up here and tell you why we're brilliant. Another way, you can take a look at what we have to offer in our programs is how we're seen by others. So rankings, we always do very well in the rankings. I think in the last 85 rankings, we've featured in the top 10, if not the top 5 of all the global rankings in the world. And one of the programs we're most proud of is our MBA program. We were the world's first executive MBA program, as I've already said. One of the best things about Chicago Booth is that although you may study in London, because that would be your closest home campus, you graduate with the same degree as everyone else in the world who's done the Chicago MBA. So you have the same professors, you get to spend time with the same students, and when you graduate with our MBA degree, you join a network of 47,000 people worldwide who hold the same degree as you. In London, we usually admit around 90 students every June, coming from more than 40 countries from across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. You won't be able to read this slide because it's too far away, but I think what I'm trying to explain or show you here is that our executive MBA program, it's taught over the course of 21 months. You spend 1 week every 6 weeks studying, and you start where the orange circle is, really on the foundations. So these are the fundamental things you need to know about business, so statistics, microeconomics, and financial accounting. And as you go through the course over the space of 21 months, you really get to see how these foundations and these business fundamentals apply in the real world. I talked a bit, so that kind of covers the conceptual knowledge that I talked about earlier. Another important piece is having the time and the tools to spend time on developing your insight skills. So we have a big piece of the program is spent on leadership and on really developing on professional development workshops, on assessment tools like 360s and other types of tools and tests that you can do to sort of assess where you sit within your organization and how you can get to where you want to be. We spend a lot of time as well on things like decision-making, negotiations, power and influence skills, so you get a chance to really practice those action skills that I talked about. The other nice thing is the modular format of all the programs that we do means that you'll have time to go back to work in between times and test out your knowledge in real time. So you're back at work here in Kiev, you get to spend some time practicing some of the things you've learned in London in the previous week. And then when you're back in the classroom, you can discuss kind of best practices and war stories with the other people in your class. The second program that we offer in London, so we have 3 different options in London, is called the Accelerated Development Program. This is really a program that's been developed for somebody who doesn't have the time for or doesn't need to do an MBA qualification. It's a short program for senior executives. It's taught over 3 months, so October, November, and December, 5 days in 5-day chunks. It takes really some of the highlights of our MBA. It's taught by some of our top faculty who fly in from Chicago. And it's a really good example of how we combine conceptual knowledge with the insight skills, even in a short program like this. So for each time you're in London, for each 5-day module, you'll spend time obviously on some of the important fundamentals of business, like financial accounting, strategic marketing, strategy. But running through that, you'll have an opportunity to do coaching with a professional leadership coach. You'll do 360 exercises. You will practice giving and receiving feedback. You'll do some storytelling. So we tried to make sure that even within a small time frame like this program, which is just 15 days, you really get a chance to practice translating the knowledge into action. And that's really a focus again at Booth. The final piece of the jigsaw in London is the work we do with corporate clients. So these are some of the corporations that we work with all over Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And what we do with these custom partners is we design and deliver customized programs for them. So we go to somebody like Dennis at Platinum Bank, and he tells us where are the holes and gaps in the knowledge of his senior leadership team, and we can design something just for Platinum Bank. And our faculty, our professors spend time with people like Dennis, really crafting and designing something that particularly works for this bank in this region. Again, how we build in the insight skills, rather than just coming and doing a 5-day course on financial accounting, we make sure there's time spent on learning in action. So there's lots of exercises in between modules, opportunities for to give and receive feedback, just to make sure that the knowledge is really embedded within the organization. And finally, it wouldn't be a Chicago Booth presentation if I didn't show you some statistics. And I have a copy of this paper at the back of the room. One of our professors, Ronald Burt, did an ROI study on an executive education program that we did. And he did this with Raytheon, which is a big defense corporation in the US. He ran this study with a control group as well. So he looked at the participants in the customized executive education program, and he ran a control group of people who did not do the program. So the first statistics are really impressive. He found that 72% of the participants on the program were more likely to be promoted, and 74% were more likely to be retained. So he went through this over a period of years and calculated this. The thing that's really interesting, or at least I think so, is the active participants on the program had 43% higher odds of promotion 2 years after the program completion. And I think this is a really good example of the importance of the insight skills that I talked about earlier. The active participants were the ones who had asked questions, who'd sought conflicting points of view, who had spent the time reflecting on what they learned, who wrote it down, and really who took part in the program and really kind of made sense of what it meant for them. And those were the participants who did best. So it's, we think it's really interesting that it was the active participants in the program who got the most out of it. And I think that kind of shows that the insight skills are a really important piece of the jigsaw. And that's it. I hope what I've done is kind of drawn some threads between what we were talking about earlier on the panel. We have a table at the back of the room, so if any of you would be interested in picking up the papers that this is based on, you can come and see me. Or if you'd like to talk to me about any of the programs, I'm here till Thursday as well. So thank you very much.